Batman has dedicated his life to an endless crusade, a war on all criminals in the name of his murdered parents, who were taken from him when he was just a child. Since that tragic night, he has trained his body and mind to near physical perfection to be a self-made superhero. He's developed an arsenal of technology that would put most armies to shame. And he's assembled teams of his fellow heroes, like the Justice League and the Outsiders. In the name of his murdered parents, Bruce Wayne wages eternal war on the criminals of his city. He's vengeance. He's the Knight. He's Batman.
More than a butler, Alfred Pennyworth is the Dark Knight's squire, expert helpmate in every field from sewing to shotguns. The Batman's career can never have happened without the assistance of Alfred, who keeps the Batcave in working order and maintains the public illusion that Bruce Wayne is nothing more than a billionaire playboy. Born and raised in England, Alfred chose to follow his mother into the theater rather than become a butler for the Wayne family of Gotham City, a job that both his father and grandfather had performed with distinction. After stints as both a soldier and actor, Alfred prepared to marry a young woman, then had his heart broken when he learned she had not been faithful to him. Soon, Alfred's father passed away, and Alfred chose to abandon the stage to fulfill his father's obligation to Thomas and Martha Wayne as their family butler. 2 years later, Thomas and Martha fell victim to a mugger. Alfred and physician Leslie Tompkins raised the Waynes' young son Bruce in Wayne Manor, after a maze of paperwork shielded the case from the influence of Gotham Child Services. When an adult Bruce decided to become the vigilante Batman, Alfred became an aide to him in the substitute string of Robins. Alfred briefly left Batman's service, but soon returned after trips to Antarctica in England. Since then, he has survived the destruction of Wayne Manor during a cataclysmic earthquake that returned Gotham City into a lawless no man's land, in his own near-fatal bout with the Clinch virus. Because he knew Bruce as a boy, Alfred is perhaps the only person in the world utterly unfazed by Batman's grim facade. Although not truly immortal, the international terrorist Ra's al Ghul was one of the most long-lived men on the planet. In Arabic, his name translates as the demon's head, a Finid name for someone so sinister. Ra's al Ghul's primary purpose during his extended life was to restore the Earth's ecological balance. Unfortunately, this seemingly altruistic goal led to him committing global genocide to reduce mankind's polluting numbers. For centuries, Ra's al Ghul maintained his existence by periodically immersing himself in Lazarus pits, holes filled with alchemical mix of acids and poisons, excavated above the electromagnetic ley lines crisscrossing the Earth. Following his emergence from the liquid in the Lazarus pits, Ra's al Ghul would for a short time be consumed with insane fury. For this reason, Ra's demanded solitude when rejuvenating himself. Ra's al Ghul's schemes to restore Earth to an Eden-like splendor have been thwarted time and again by Batman. The Dark Knight first met the enigmatic eco-terrorist when Ra's al Ghul, desiring an heir for his crime empire, kidnapped Robin in an attempt to coerce the Dark Knight into marrying his daughter Talia. Naturally, Batman refused. Not though he had deep feelings for the beautiful Talia, he continued to oppose Ra's al Ghul's schemes. Ra's al Ghul continued to seek a suitable heir, even considering the muscle-bound terrorist Bane, before Talia spurned this potential suitor. The dejected Bane then set about sabotaging Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus pits to get revenge. James Gordon, his wife Barbara, and their 2 children moved to Gotham City from Chicago, where he established a reputation for honesty and an infamously corrupt police department. However, Gordon's dedication took its toll on his marriage, and Barbara left him. One of Jim's first assignments was hunting down the urban legend known as Batman. Despite his aversion to Batman's vigilantism, the chain-smoking Gordon became a close ally of the Dark Knight. Gordon eventually became police commissioner, forging one of the finest departments in the country. He also fell in love with and married Sergeant Sarah Essen. Gordon refused to leave Gotham when the city was struck by an earthquake, and with a few loyal officers sought to maintain a semblance of law and order. Tragically, Sarah was murdered by the Joker while trying to save the lives of Gotham's dozens of kidnapped children. Gordon finally retired after 20 years as a police officer, though he returned as commissioner several months after the Infinite Crisis. His daughter Barbara continues to fight crime in Metropolis and across the world.
Angered by the power and corruption of multinational corporations, 12-year-old Lonnie Machin donned a costume that increased his height and took to the streets as Anarchy. Anarchy murdered several CEOs and celebrities, spray painting their bodies with his a symbol after he killed them. Batman soon identified the assassin from clues in a Gotham City newspaper that linked the murders to Anarchy. Astonished to discover that Anarchy was just a boy, Batman apprehended him, and Machin was incarcerated at the Gotham Juvenile Corrections Hall. Machin later became the computer hacker Money Spider and transferred millions of dollars from the accounts of wealthy corporations to third world countries. Batman's partner, Robin, determined Money Spider's link to Anarchy, and Machin's plans for global change were thwarted. Undaunted, and using a special device of his own creation, Machin fused the two sides of his brain, increasing his intelligence to superhuman levels. After toying with Batman and Robin, Anarchy learned that he had been adopted, and that his natural mother was a Vegas showgirl, and his father was the Joker. This only furthered Anarchy's resolve to wreak havoc on the industrialized world, in the hope of triggering worldwide revolution. Despite his criminal history with Earth's defenders, most notably Batman, Anarchy has worked alongside heroes including Robin, Green Lantern, and Young Justice against some of their greatest enemies, including Clarion, the Witch Boy and Darkseid. Superman's greatest enemy, Lex Luthor, may be the most gifted man alive, but rather than use his supreme intellect and skills for the betterment of mankind, the sociopath has continually sought power and influence without regard for the pain and suffering he causes. Lex appeared in Metropolis and built his technology company, LexCorp, into a powerhouse. Financial success led to political power, and he was considered the city's most powerful figure. Then came the day that Superman appeared in the skies above Metropolis and turned Lex's world upside down. Superman openly accused Luthor of being a criminal mastermind rather than a benefactor of mankind. Luthor soon swore to bring down the last son of Krypton. Over the years, he has used his power and influence to plague the Man of Steel time and again. When Lois Lane exposed his criminal dealings, Luthor triggered devices hidden within Metropolis that destroyed the city. Superman and his fellow heroes rebuilt Metropolis, and the battle between Superman and Luthor continued. Realizing the need to muzzle the press, Luthor bought and then sold the Daily Planet to Perry White on condition that Lois Lane killed any single story of his choosing. Feeling safe from exposure, Luthor ran for President of the United States to gain the power needed to bring Superman down. Surprisingly, he served the country's interests well, strengthening or forging relationships with many nations from Atlantis to Russia. Luthor's presidential power still could not bring about the end of Superman and his costumed friends. When an asteroid neared Earth, Luthor detected kryptonite radiation and used that to try and turn the public against the Man of Steel. He even sent costume champions after Superman, but this gambit also failed. Finally, he donned a LexCorp war suit and tried to take down not only Superman, but Batman as well. His efforts were in vain, and his deception was made public. Driven from the presidency, Luthor was thought to have died, but limped to freedom. An angry, vengeful man. Growing up in Gotham City can be complicated, especially when you're a kid who's obsessed with Batman and Robin. After he deduced the identities of Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, a self-made hero in every sense of the word, Tim took on the role of Robin after attempting to convince Dick Grayson to become Batman's sidekick again, following the death of Jason Todd. In Tim's mind, Batman needed a Robin to stay true to himself and his mission. Although Tim didn't intend to take up the mantle for himself, he was more than happy to do what needed to be done. Edward Nygma found his ticket to the big time as an employee of Wayne Industries, securing the role of advisor to Philip Kane, Bruce Wayne's uncle, who ran the Wayne Corporation When Bruce left to train to become the Batman, Nigma began plotting his takeover of the city. An expert strategist with genius-level knowledge of history, it was not long before Nigma adopted the guise of a supervillain, calling himself the Riddler. As an orphan growing up on the streets, Selina Kyle became a thief to survive. After perfecting her skills as a cat burglar, she now wears a catsuit to steal from the corrupt and richest Catwoman. Unlike most criminals, Catwoman walks the line between good and evil. With occasional acts of heroism between heists, Catwoman is a master martial artist and acrobat. As stealthy as a ninja, she's also an expert at breaking and entering. Her bullwhip is her main weapon, alongside claws she uses to scale buildings and scratch enemies. She also flirts with her opponents to distract them, especially Batman. Born on the island of Santa Prisca, the boy who would become Bane was raised within the confines of his nation's cruelest prison, where he honed his mind by reading any books he could get his hands on. After decades of imprisonment, he was chosen for an experiment testing a super steroid called Venom. Not only did Venom work, but it also gave Bane the strength to escape. He then set his sights on Gotham City, a place of which he had heard many legends, with one goal in mind: break Batman. No name strikes terror into the hearts of Gotham City's citizens, quite like the Joker. In a city overrun with larger-than-life criminals, the always-laughing villain stands alone, a complete psychopath with no moral compass whatsoever. The Joker, whose real name and identity remain completely unknown, is characterized by his chalk-white skin, green hair and a permanent Richter's grin stretched across his face. But there isn't a single thing funny about this particular clown, who only finds humor in the suffering of others. The Scarecrow constantly proves to be a dangerous threat to the Dark Knight, not due to physical strength, but to the emotional and psychological damage his toxins can cause. In fact, Scarecrow tends to shy away from physical confrontations and instead lets his victims fall prey to their own waking nightmares. A doctor of the deadliest caliber, the Scarecrow's horrific acts don't stem from a villainous desire for power or money, but from an unbreakable urge to learn and hone his craft, mastery over fear itself. Basil Karlo was a famous actor, known primarily for his roles in horror films. However, when replaced as the lead in a movie, he went mad with rage. His life began to take a strange path when he injected himself with a formula that altered his body completely, making him a dangerous shapeshifter made of living clay who can change his physical form however he chooses, with the ability to adopt the appearance of anyone or anything. Clayface has become one of Batman's most powerful enemies,